The first time Leo Cruz saw them, he thought they were lost. They moved through the weathered trailers and sun-bleached cars of the Sandpiper Meadows mobile home park with a purpose that felt entirely out of place. A man and a woman, both in crisp, navy blue windbreakers with "park compliance" stitched in yellow on the back. They carried clipboards and walked with the stiff-backed posture of people who believed they owned the ground beneath their feet. Leo, a former Army Ranger who had traded IED-swept roads for the dusty, quiet lanes of this Arizona retirement community, felt the old antennae twitch. He was on his knees, replacing the warped skirting around his trailer, the desert heat already baking the metal of his wrench. He watched them stop at Old Man Henderson's place, point at his collection of vintage license plates nailed to a shed, and write something down. Henderson, a Vietnam vet with shoulders permanently stooped from time and sorrow, just nodded, his eyes on the ground. Park compliance. Leo had read the community bylaws cover to cover when he bought the place 6 months ago. They were simple. Keep your lot tidy, no unregistered vehicles, respect the quiet hours. There was no mention of a compliance team. He filed the observation away, a silent note in the mental ledger he'd kept since his deployment days. That night, over a simple dinner of beans and rice, he mentioned it to his aunt, Elena. She'd lived in Sandpiper Meadows for a decade, her trailer a warm, fragrant haven of embroidered blankets and simmering pots of caldo. It was for her that Leo had moved here, after the IED that ended his career and the silence that followed. She was his anchor. Los encargados, she said, waving a dismissive hand, but Leo saw the faint worry line appear between her brows. They started coming last month. Very strict all of a sudden. Maria Gonzalez got a ticket because her garden gnome was a tripping hazard. A tripping hazard? In her own flower bed. Who are they? Leo asked, his voice calm but his instincts humming. Elena shrugged, stirring her pot. The manager, Mr. Peterson, he hired them, I think, to maintain standards. But they don't smile. They just write. The next encounter was Leo's. He was walking back from the mailboxes, a handful of bills and flyers in his hand, when the 2 compliance officers fell into step beside him. The man was broad-shouldered, with a shaved head and eyes that missed nothing. The woman was smaller, sharper, her mouth a thin, unforgiving line. "Sir," the man said, his voice a low baritone that didn't invite friendliness. "Your vehicle inspection sticker expires next month. It needs to be updated before it becomes a violation." Leo stopped walking. He turned slowly, meeting the man's gaze. He saw the cheap plastic badge clipped to his windbreaker. It had a blurry photo and the name, D. Vaughn. "It's registered. It'll be done," Leo said, his tone neutral, factual. "See that it is," the woman, whose badge read L. Gable, said. Her eyes scanned his property, lingering on a pile of leftover lumber he was saving for a new porch step. "And that building material needs to be stored out of sight or disposed of. Community aesthetics." "It's for a project," Leo said. "The rule doesn't make exceptions for projects," Vaughn replied, a hint of a smirk playing on his lips. He made a note on his clipboard. "Consider this your warning." They walked away, their footsteps crunching on the gravel in perfect unison. Leo watched them go, the feeling of wrongness solidifying into certainty. This wasn't about rules. This was about territory. The whispers started soon after, passed over fences and during brief chats at the community laundry room. Old Mrs. Gable was fined $200 for a non-approved bird feeder. The Ramirez family was told their children's basketball hoop was an unpermitted structure and had to be removed. Each story was the same. The cold, impersonal delivery of the violation, the threat of heavier fines, the underlying current of fear. People paid. It was easier than fighting. Sandpiper Meadows was a place of fixed incomes and quiet retirements. A $200 fine was a catastrophe. A $1,000 fine could mean losing their home. Leo tried the official route. He called the management office. A harried-sounding woman told him Mr. Peterson was unavailable, and that the compliance team was authorized to act on behalf of ownership. When Leo pressed, the line went dead. The air in the park grew thick with unspoken anxiety. Porches that were once filled with people chatting in the cool evenings were now empty. Blinds were drawn. The community, once loosely knit but friendly, was being systematically isolated and silenced. The confrontation came on a blisteringly hot afternoon. Leo was inside, helping Elena reorganize her kitchen cabinets, when they heard the voices outside. Elena peeked through the curtains. Asterisk Dios mío. Asterisk it's the Ramirez boy. And asterisk Los Encargados. Leo was out the door in an instant. On the road outside the Ramirez trailer, their 15-year-old son, Mateo, stood defiantly next to his basketball hoop. Vaughn and Gable flanked him, their postures aggressive. I said, it has to go today, Vaughn was saying, his voice a low growl. Your parents ignored the notice. It's my hoop. We've had it for years. Mateo's voice cracked with a mix of anger and adolescent bravado. The rules have changed, Gable said flatly. Now, are you going to take it down, or are we going to impound it as unauthorized property? Vaughn took a step forward, reaching for the hoop space. Mateo instinctively stepped in his way. What happened next was fast and deliberate. Vaughn didn't shove the teenager. He simply placed a large hand on Mateo's chest and pushed hard. The boy stumbled backward, landing hard on the dusty ground, his eyes wide with shock and humiliation. From doorways and behind curtains, neighbors watched. No one moved. Leo's body went cold. It wasn't the explosive heat of anger, but the frigid, precise calm of a soldier assessing a threat. The isolation, the fear, the bullying, it had all been leading to this moment. A grown man putting his hands on a kid. Get away from him, Leo said. His voice wasn't loud. It was like the cocking of a hammer in the desert silence. Vaughn turned, his smirk returning when he saw Leo. Gable's hand went to the radio on her belt. This doesn't concern you, Cruz. Community business. You put your hands on a child on community property, Leo said, walking forward, his eyes locked on Vaughn's. That makes it my business. He was obstructing compliance, Gable snapped. Leo reached Mateo and offered a hand, pulling the boy to his feet. Go inside, Mateo. The boy, shaken, nodded and scurried into his home. Vaughn took a step closer, invading Leo's space. He was bigger, but Leo was made of coiled wire and hardened resolve. You're making a big mistake. You think your army background scares me? This is our park now. You follow our rules. You're not rules, Leo said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. You're a shakedown, and you just crossed a line. Vaughn's smirk finally broke into a full, ugly grin. Or what? What are you gonna do, soldier? The blow was so fast it was almost invisible. Vaughn's open-handed slap wasn't aimed at Leo. It was aimed at the screen door of Elena's trailer, where she had just emerged, her face pale with worry. The crack of his palm against the aluminum frame was like a gunshot. Elena gasped, flinching backward, her hand flying to her heart. Next time, Vaughn snarled. It won't be the door. The world narrowed to a single, cold point. The fear in his aunt's eyes. The humiliation on Mateo's face. The smug triumph on Vaughn's. The years of training, of discipline, of holding his volatile temper on a razor's edge, snapped. Leo moved. There was no wasted motion. 1 second he was standing still. The next, his foot swept Vaughn's legs out from under him. As the bigger man crashed to the ground, Leo was on him, twisting his arm into a lock that made Vaughn cry out in genuine shock and pain. Gable lunged, but Leo used Vaughn's body as a pivot, kicking out a leg and catching her in the thigh, sending her stumbling into the dust. It was over in 5 seconds. Vaughn pinned, grunting in the dirt. Gable scrambled backward, fumbling for her radio. The entire park, it seemed, was holding its breath. Then, a screen door creaked open. Then, another. Old Man Henderson stepped out, a baseball bat held loosely in his gnarled hands. Mrs. Gonzalez emerged, phone held up, recording. Ramirez's door flew open, and Mr. Ramirez stood there, his face a mask of fury. "You hit my son," he yelled, his voice echoing in the sudden silence. Gable was on her radio. "Unit 2, we need assistance at Lot 14. Resident assault. Send the..." She never finished. The wail of a siren, already close, cut her off. A patrol car, followed by a generic sedan, turned into the park, moving fast. They didn't look like they were responding to a radio call. They looked like they were arriving on schedule. The cars skidded to a halt. 2 sheriff's deputies got out, hands on their holsters. A man in a cheap suit emerged from the sedan, the elusive manager, Mr. Peterson. He looked nervous. "What is the meaning of this?" Peterson blustered, his eyes darting from Leo to his pinned employee. "This man assaulted my officers." Gable shrieked, pointing at Leo. Leo didn't loosen his grip. He looked past Peterson, directly at the deputies. "These people are impersonating officials, harassing residents, extorting money, and just assaulted a minor and an elderly woman." His voice was rock steady. "I'd like to press charges." The silence that followed was broken by a chorus of voices. "I saw it," Mrs. Gonzalez shouted, waving her phone. "He pushed the Ramirez boy. He threatened Elena. They fined me for my bird feeder," old Mrs. Gable yelled, her voice trembling with rage. "They took my money," another voice called out. "Said my awning was a violation." The dam had broken. Months of fear and frustration poured out into the street. The deputies, looking suddenly very serious, separated everyone. Peterson's face was ashen. It was the woman in the sedan who changed everything. She'd been silent until then, taking notes. Now she stepped forward, flashing a badge. "Deputies, I think I can clear this up. I'm Investigator Morales, with the State Attorney General's office. We've been investigating a series of predatory real estate scams targeting senior mobile home parks. We were just about to move in." She looked at Vaughn and Gable with cold disdain. These two work for a shell corporation that's been buying up parks quietly, installing their own management, and using intimidation and fraudulent fines to force long-term residents out so they can flip the properties for a massive profit. Mr. Peterson here was promised a cut. The truth landed like a bomb. It wasn't just petty tyranny. It was a calculated, cruel business plan. As Vaughn and Gable were read their rights and Peterson was led to a squad car, the residents of Sandpiper Meadows stood in stunned silence. The monster they feared wasn't a monster at all. It was a balance sheet. That evening, the park felt different. People didn't retreat inside. They gathered in the street, talking, sharing stories, their voices a mixture of outrage and immense relief. Investigator Morales found Leo sitting on his porch steps, watching the sunset paint the desert sky in shades of orange and purple. Elena was beside him, her hand on his shoulder. "You gave us the final piece we needed, Mr. Cruz," Morales said. "We knew what they were doing, but we needed a precipitating event, something to make them show their hand in front of witnesses. You provided that." Leo just nodded. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt tired. The following week, a real community meeting was held in the rec hall. This time, it was packed. Investigator Morales was there, explaining the legal process. A new, legitimate management company had been brought in. But the most important shift happened among the residents themselves. They formed a formal tenant association and elected Leo, to his great surprise, as its first president. Old Man Henderson became the head of a neighborhood watch. Mrs. Gonzalez started a phone tree. Leo stood before the group, looking out at the faces of his neighbors, no longer strangers, but allies. "They thought we were easy targets," he said, his voice quiet but carrying to every corner of the room. "They thought fear would keep us in line. They were wrong. Our strength was always here. It was with each other. All we had to do was remember to look up from our own steps and see it." As the meeting broke up, Leo walked outside with Elena. The air was cool, and the first stars were appearing overhead. The park was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet. It wasn't the silence of fear. It was the peace of a hard-won safety. "We came here for a quiet life, Mijo," Elena said, squeezing his arm. Leo looked around at his community, finally awake and united. "We have won, Tia," he said. "It's just a little louder than we thought it would be."